Welcome into the Sharp Sports YouTube podcast. My name is Andrew Sharp. We'll be talking everything Denver sports and beyond. Please like and subscribe if you are a sports fan like me. Let's do this. Welcome into the 2024 Broncos preview edition. My name is Andrew Sharp. Good to be here. Let's talk some Broncos. But first, let's talk a little bit about me. Who am I? My name is Andrew Sharp. I'm now a longtime Denver resident. I moved to Denver in 2001, and I've been pretty much a lifelong sports fan. I'm certainly not a diehard Bronco fan, as I did not grow up here, nor did I watch John Elway lose those Super Bowls in the 80s. But I have a pretty good sense of the Broncos now, and definitely Denver is always more fun when the Broncos are relevant. And today we're going to talk some more about the outlook for their 2024 upcoming season. And it's hard to assess a lot as much in the preseason these days because of the fact that so many players either play very limited reps or don't play a lot of reps. Other opposing teams really don't play a lot of their best players for much of the game. Vanilla coverages, not a lot of scheming or game preparation goes into specific matchups. But in saying that, only 3 games, but the main story of the Broncos 24 season will be their quarterback, Bo Nix, and I would say Sean Payton, both. The marriage of quarterback and coach together, that's what this season is going to come down to. We saw last year in the 2023 season that the marriage of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson did not work. Did not work at all. The famous Sean Payton capture of him screaming at Russell Wilson on the sideline meant that this was not going to be a long-term relationship. So, but Bo Nix has looked good. He has been good in the Sean Payton system, which basically mostly relies on getting the ball out quickly, much like Drew Brees did in New Orleans during the Sean Payton era. Bo Nix has been praised by the coaching staff and at his previous college stops of being able to process information quickly. He proved that he can learn multiple offenses when he transferred from Auburn to Oregon and did quite well at Oregon with that. So I am very happy about this because the Broncos, since Peyton Manning retired, have been doing the washed-up veteran slash journeyman job, quarterback job, for quite a long time. And in case you didn't know, there's a reigning dynasty happening within the Broncos division called the Kansas City Chiefs. And the only way you have a shot of going against the Chiefs is to be able to draft and develop your guy. He's not going to be Mahomes. Nobody's Mahomes. But you have a shot at being able to construct a team around a rookie on a rookie deal so that you can acquire more talent around that rookie because you're not paying him yet. You also want to develop him because he's a young guy in your system and you can make him work within the system that Sean Payton wants to run. The other thing I would say is that Nix clearly comes in with probably the most or second most college experience ever for a rookie. So yes, he is a rookie. He will make mistakes. I'm okay with that. But he's clearly shown the ability and the trust from Sean Payton and the coaching staff that he can take what they give him, process it, and then continue to improve because even as he looked solid through the first couple of games of preseason, there are going to be the 3 interception game. It's going to happen. It happens for almost every rookie. It's part of the growing process, but I'm quite all right with that. And I wanted to take a look today a little bit as we look back. What did Sean Payton actually do with a slightly veteran, but there were questions about whether Drew Brees was actually a good NFL quarterback. Chargers went ahead and drafted Phillip Rivers. Drew Brees had shoulder surgery and was actually failed by the Miami team doctor. Did not pass the physical in New Orleans, and ended up with Sean Payton. And it's pretty remarkable to look back. I had forgotten that the how much success Drew Brees had with Sean Payton in that first year in New Orleans. They went, and I'm looking at to look this up. They went 10-6, which is crazy enough. 10-6 is a solid record. It was actually good enough that year in the NFC to capture the number 2 seed. So they had a bye. With the way the system was set up before, top 2 seeds in each conference got a bye. So they had a bye. They did not have to play the wild card round. They were able to host a playoff game in the divisional round, which they beat the Eagles 27-24, and then lost when they had to go to Chicago. That was the Rex Grossman, Brian Urlacher Chicago Bears, who were very good that particular year, and lost 34. Or excuse me, they had 14-39 to the Chicago Bears, who did go to the Super Bowl, eventually losing to Peyton Manning's Indianapolis Colts. The other thing about Sean Payton that I like, and I think is going to be very promising for this year, is it will not be all on Bo Nix for the success of this team. This team will be running the ball. Now, 2006 was a slightly different, I would say actually very different game in the way the NFL games played. It's much more a running league than a passing league. However, even within the modern structure of football, if you run the ball in 2024, good things can still happen. Mostly because if you're playing a team, as aforementioned, like the Kansas City Chiefs, if you can hold on to the ball and keep Patrick Mahomes and other high-powered offenses on the sideline, you're going to be able to win some games. The rushing totals as a team for the New Orleans Saints in 2006, they had 472 attempts for 1,761 yards. So they averaged 3.73 yards per rush in 472 attempts over 16 games. So they averaged almost 30 carries a game. I don't think the Broncos are actually going to do that. I think they're going to be fairly more balanced. We'll say Drew Brees, or excuse me, see, I almost did it. Almost called him Drew Brees. We're going to say that Bo Nix throws the ball anywhere from 20 to 25 times a game, and they're going to run the ball anywhere from 25 to 30 times a game, assuming that's a well-balanced attack and they have an average number of possessions per game. So I think if you really want to focus on how Sean Payton made his bones in New Orleans, yes, the marriage with Drew Brees was really good, and Drew Brees had tremendous success under Sean Payton's system. But they were a running team with Deuce McAllister, Reggie Bush, later Alvin Kamara, but they have been a running team. Sean Payton believes in power football. He comes from Parcells. He's a Parcells disciple. He wants to run the ball, play defense, and do a little more old school than I think people realize. Yes, his offense can be very creative, but at the end of the day, he still believes in physical football, and I do too. Also because, again, the Broncos fell into a trap a couple years ago with John Elway, where they were trying to, I would say, out-chief the Chiefs. They thought that they could run and draft a bunch of wide receivers and go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs playing that game, and it did not work at all. It was a complete disaster, partially because they didn't have the quarterback to actually execute that offense, and also I think trying to say that you're going to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes offensively is a very risky proposition. I don't think it has long-term success. And the Chiefs are who you were chasing. They just are. Everyone is playing for second place in the AFC West this year. I've been begging the Broncos to quit with the Band-Aids. The Band-Aids, the washed-ups, the has-beens, the rookies who can't play. They've tried a bazillion different things at quarterback since the great 18 Peyton Manning retired after the Broncos Super Bowl 50 win in 2016. It's been a rough road. I actually have to go back and re-look this up because there are so many quarterbacks that even I forget who who actually has played a game or started a game for the Broncos in the last 8 seasons. So we're going to go through the list again because it bears worth repeating just how ridiculous it is. I believe only the Cleveland Browns have started more players at quarterback in the last 8 seasons. So, in order, in the way they started games, Granted, guys floated in and out, so I'm not going to go through all that because that's boring anyway. Number 1, Trevor Siemian, the journeyman. I'll never forget when he did the NBC special when he did the sit down with Peter King as if he had arrived. It was way too soon. Enough said. Brock Osweiler, second round pick, should have stayed with Denver. Took the money bag with Houston because he got his ego bruised. Ended up with Cleveland. Is now a backup in Miami. Paxton Lynch, probably the worst first round quarterback the Broncos have ever taken. Guy was addicted to Fortnite. That's a true story. I've heard that from multiple people who I know in town. He literally was addicted to a video game. It cost him an NFL career. Case Keenum, classic journeyman. He was fine. He was fine. He had one miracle year in Minnesota. He did okay here. He wasn't a disaster, but he's a career backup. Let's go. Oh, Joe Flacco. Yeah, gotta love Joe Flacco. After he was basically done and Baltimore gave him away and went with Lamar Jackson, then we signed him a couple years after he beat the Broncos in the 2012-2013 season playoff game that I attended. Drew Lock. Like Drew Lock. Drew Lock, I have mixed feelings about. I feel like he still could have done more than he did, but he proved that he's kind of just a guy. Very talented, but never would have amazing games, and then games where you'd kind of scratch your head. Brandon Allen, totally forgot he even played for the Broncos. Don't remember the games. They weren't very memorable. Showed flashes. No thanks. Jeff Driscoll is a backup quarterback. He's not a starting quarterback. Brett Rippon, again, nice story. Showed some flashes. Seems like a good guy. Was good in the interviews. Not an NFL starting quarterback. Kendall Hinton, the infamous COVID Bronco disaster where all the Broncos broke the NFL's COVID protocols, so all were ruled out for the game, and we started a wide receiver at quarterback. Yes, that happened. Teddy Bridgewater. I like Teddy B. Vance Joseph did him absolutely no favors here. The offensive line was not very good. He got beat up terribly. I felt bad for him. I thought he kind of got a raw deal here in town, but Teddy's a solid guy. Had a good NFL career. Made some money. I think he's coaching high school ball now. Wish him nothing but the best. Can't compete on the level with Mahomes or any of those guys. Russell Wilson. Well, Russell, where do we start with that? Disaster. It's been a disaster. It was a disastrous trade. If it continues the way I think it's going to go for him in Pittsburgh, it will be probably the first or second worst trade in NFL history. And I never thought you could do a bigger, worse trade than the Herschel Walker trade. Although at least Herschel Walker played for the Dallas got all those picks, but at least he played for the team next. I was working at a sports talk radio station the day they traded for Russell Wilson. I was a fan. I thought that he would definitely have a nice second stint here in Denver. And turned out that he was done. I think he's done. Pittsburgh is basically desperate, and they're trying to convince himself that he has something left. I don't see it. Jarrett Stidham. We're going to talk some more about Stidham later. Again, career backup. I understand that Stidham wants to be a starter in the NFL. If he didn't feel that way, he probably doesn't have the competitive fire to be a starter in the NFL, but he's not an NFL starting caliber quarterback. He's a very good backup. I understand why the Broncos, to an extent, signed him now because they didn't have a plan with before they drafted Bo Nix. So he was kind of a backup plan. But now with Zach Wilson, I'm less of a fan of keeping Stidham around. But I understand where they're going. So we get to Bo Nix. And Bo Nix is what I have been basically begging the Broncos to do, which is draft and develop, draft and develop, draft and develop, for a variety of reasons. Number one is he's cheaper than a lot of the guys you're going to pay, because some of these guys I mentioned, especially a guy like Flacco, you're paying Flacco a lot of money. He's a vested veteran, so you're paying him not top of the market, but you're paying him a lot of money coming in. Bo Nix is cheap. He's young. He's athletic. He can run a bit, and he's eager to learn. And you have to develop your system around him, and vice versa. But he's shown clearly that he can run an NFL offense. I'm very excited for what he brings for the Broncos. it's just a new chapter. It's a new beginning. It's exciting. Um, I'm not entirely sure how they're going to do this year, but they're not. From what I've seen in the preseason, I really have trouble seeing this team being quite as bad as some of the prognosticators have suggested, with the Broncos over win total being at right around 5 to 6 games. I really don't see why they can't win a bit more than that. Now, that depends on a couple factors. One is the defense has to be better than it was last year. The defense had started out good and then gave up that 70-point Miami debacle, which we will not discuss, hopefully, ever again. But I think the defense can be better. Run the ball, control the game, have Bo Nix pass efficiently in Sean Payton's offense, keep the game close, be competitive. I definitely do not see the Broncos getting blown out in a lot of games this year. They may lose more games at the last second or fourth quarter, but I don't see them getting truly undressed in many football games this year. They have a competitive team. So in going through picking all the games, my low end projection for the Broncos is they will have a 7-10 or 8-9 win season. I would say the mid range, which I think is most accurate, puts them at 10-7, fighting for a sixth or seventh seed AFC wildcard spot, depending on how other standings go. And if things really get rolling with Bo Nix, which is of course what I hope for, but I'm trying to keep things tempered and reasonable, I would say 11-7, 11-6, excuse me, or 12-5. That would be an amazing year. The Broncos have not won double-digit games since Super Bowl 50. So let's keep it reasonable. But 10 wins would be a very, very good year in Sean Payton's second year as Broncos head coach with a rookie quarterback. So week 1 at Seattle. I thought about this one a lot. I really think the Broncos are going to surprise some people, but I think that asking a rookie starting his first game in Seattle with that noise, that might be asking a bit much. So I have that as a loss. If they win this game, then we got something. I'm very excited about that. We're going to put that as a loss. Second week, Pittsburgh. They're hosting the Steelers. The Russ revenge game. I think the Broncos, especially the fans, are going to be fired up. Russ is going to get booed a lot, and Pittsburgh's offense is not great. So I think the Broncos win that game. Week 3 at the Bucks, 11 a.m. start. I think this is where they're definitely going to take an L, even in my best projections. Bucks are good with Baker Mayfield. 11 a.m. East Coast games, early start time. Has even really good Bronco teams have always struggled with the early East Coast start. And it's going to be hot. It's in Florida. It's in Tampa. I have that as a loss. Week 4, Jets. They're at the Jets. I thought this was a home game, but they're in New York. And I'm really thinking that, unfortunately, I think Aaron Rodgers, I think early in the season he could really do pretty good. Again, the problem is it's the 11 a.m. start on the East Coast. I think the Broncos are going to lose that one. Week 5, host the Raiders here in Denver. Raiders are not good. I don't want to hear about it. The Raiders have talent, but they don't have a quarterback. And I don't think Antonio Pierce is the head coach that they've been looking for. I think he was good enough that they didn't want to pay anybody else, so they stuck with him. I have the Broncos winning that Week 5 game. Week 6, they host the Chargers. Now, I have mixed feelings about this too, because if you probably don't know, I'm a Michigan fan, so I believe in Harbaugh. However, I think the Chargers, offensively, personnel-wise, are very limited, despite their quarterback being very good. And I think if the Broncos are going to make some hay this year. They got to win this game. They have to win this game. It's a divisional game at home against the Chargers. Chargers are in the first year of Harbaugh. Next year with Harbaugh, they could be very, very dangerous, but I think this year it's going to take some time. So I have that as a win. Week 7, they're at the Saints. Now, I don't know. I have this as a win only because I don't believe in the Saints. However, on the road, Thursday night football games, generally the home team has a huge advantage in this game. However, I think there'll be some decent amount of Bronco fans there, and I just don't believe in the Saints this year. I don't like the coach. I don't like the quarterback. I don't like much of what the Saints have going on. So I do have, even in my worst projections, I do have the Broncos winning a Thursday night road game, which is hard to do, but I think they do. they get to host the Panthers the next week. Panthers are probably the first or second worst team in the NFL. They should win that game. So week 9 at the Ravens, 11 a.m. start. And they aren't winning this game. No way. They didn't win this game a couple years ago when they had to go to Baltimore early, 11 a.m. start. They're not. Sorry, they're not as good as the Ravens yet. So week 9 at the Ravens, loss. Week 10 at the Chiefs, loss. Sorry. Yes, we might beat the Chiefs at some point in Arrowhead, but this isn't the year. So Chiefs are still the absolute kings of the AFC West and, quite frankly, the entire league. Week 11, they host the Falcons. Now, I had this as a win, but thinking about it, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. Kirk Cousins, I could see Kirk Cousins coming in here and playing very well. I have that as a win for the Broncos, but if they lost that game, I wouldn't be surprised, which would put them down more in the 9-8 category, because I really think to make some hay in the AFC, because the AFC is so hard, you got to win your NFC game. So I have the Broncos having a good season, winning in the NFC, which reminds me, Sean Payton knows this division very, very well, as he was head coach of the New Orleans Saints. So the Broncos get a little bit of a break this year in that they play a division that their head coach knows very, very well. So we were at the Falcons. Next is at the Raiders, which I have as a win. I think in Vegas there will be a lot of Bronco fans. I don't believe in the Raiders. I really think they're going to be picking in the top 5 of the NFL draft this year, top 3, maybe top 2. So I have that as a win. Again, got to win the divisional games. Got to win the divisional games if you're going to have a successful season for this year's Broncos. Week 13, hosting the Browns. Monday night. I'm not entirely sure what Cleveland is. I have this as a win only because it's a Monday night home game, but that could be a very hard game. Could see them losing that. We're going to say it's a slight win. So they've been winning a lot of games. They would be on a 3-game winning streak. Then they get a bye, which is great. Coming off the bye, they get to host the Colts. Colts have been surprisingly a tough out. They're not a great team by any means, but they are a good barometer of whether you're having a good season or not. I'm projecting the Broncos have a pretty good year. So we're going to say that as a win. Now, the last 3 are at the Chargers, at the Bengals, and then they host the Chiefs. This is rough. This is the hardest part of their schedule, no question about it. 2 back-to-back road divisional game at the Bengals, who are always, unless Joe Burrow gets hurt again, that should be a very hard game. Now, I have them losing both of those games. I don't think they're going to win at the Chargers. Chargers will win one of these divisional games. And I don't think they're going to go to Cincinnati and win. Now, that puts them right around we'll say at that point, they have 10 wins, 9 or 10 wins, and they need maybe one more, or 8 or 9 wins. I think week 17, they host the Chiefs as their final home game here. I think by then, believe it or not, I think the Chiefs are going to be sitting people. I don't think they're going to play Patrick Mahomes. I think they're going to have the number 1 seed wrapped up. I think they're going to be preparing for a bye week. And I don't think the Chiefs have any reason to win this game. So they're not going to play any starters, which is going to help the Broncos. Even though the Chiefs don't want to help the Broncos, I think this is the game that could actually clinch the playoff spot, the final seed in the AFC 6 or 7 wildcard spot, and end up getting a gift from Kansas City as Kansas City rests starters. But that doesn't mean that they're going to beat Kansas City later on. So, again, have the Broncos around 9-8, 10-7, making a wild card this year for the first time in 8 years. I really think they can do it. I didn't think it last year at all. I haven't thought it for a long time. But I think if they get some things rolling, I actually do think that they have a shot at this. Now, it's way too early. We're going to revisit this once we have a better sense of where this team is at, probably week 5 or 6. I might reassess all of this as we go ahead, but it's always fun to project. And it's fun to project the Broncos possibly having a double-digit win season for the first time in 8 years. So anyway, that pretty much wraps things up. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Again, if you like some of this stuff and you're a sports fan, I encourage you to like and subscribe. And I can't wait to talk to you all again about some football. It's exciting. I'm glad it's here. And go Broncos. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Once again, my name is Andrew Sharp. Sharp Sports YouTube podcast. And we'll see you next time.